All right, boys and girls. So we've had the blood, the Nile River turning to blood, the jumping frogs. We've had the lice that made everybody so itchy. We've had all those great big swarms of flies. We've had many of the livestock have died from the terrible disease. We've had boils on everybody's, but Pharaoh's heart is still hard. Now, listen really carefully. This is sometimes a little hard for children to understand, even adults to understand. When we read the Bible, many of the times it says Pharaoh hardened his heart. But it also says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. That doesn't mean that Pharaoh wanted his heart to be soft, but God said you can't. It kind of happened the same thing. God was using Pharaoh to show his might and to bring his people out to that wonderful land that he promised. So now Moses and Aaron, God says to Moses and Aaron, I want you to go to Pharaoh and say, how long are you going to harden your heart? Don't you know that I could have made you like nothing in the earth? I could have set my hand upon you so you'd be completely gone. And now I'm going to warn you that tomorrow is going to be a terrible storm in Egypt. So terrible. There's going to be hail and thunder and lightning that Egypt has never had such a storm, and it never will have it again. So Moses went into, and he said to Pharaoh, this is what God says. Don't harden your heart. Let my people go so that they may worship you. They may worship me. And if you don't, then there's going to be a terrible storm. So terrible that there's never been such a storm in Egypt. So please, said Moses, make sure that all the people get in from the fields. Don't let anybody be outside in the fields. Don't let any animals that are left be outside in the field. Bring them all in because there's going to be a terrible storm. Well, all the people that feared the Lord, and some of the Egyptians did fear the Lord, they took their animals, the ones that were left, they brought them inside, and they made sure that their servants and they were not outside. But the ones who didn't, they just let them outside. And then God told to Moses to stretch out his hand. So Moses stretched out his hand over Egypt. And then that day, the next day, was a terrible, terrible storm. There were huge hails, and there was lightning, and there was fireballs coming in the lightning, and rain was pouring, and thunder was pouring, and hail and rain. It was a terrible, terrible storm. It was so rough, that hail, that it broke almost all the branches of the trees, and it destroyed the crops that were in bud. It completely destroyed the wheat and the barley and the rye. It didn't destroy the wheat and the spelt because they were late crops, but it completely destroyed them. And so Pharaoh, the ones that were feared the Lord, they didn't have any problems, but the ones who were out in the field, they were even killed. And Pharaoh ran and he said to Moses, he said, I have sinned. God is righteous, and I will let you go. We're sinful. We will let you go. Just please plead to the Lord and ask him to stop this terrible storm. So when Moses and Aaron went out of the city, Moses spread out his hands to God and he said, please, God, stop this storm. And God did. The storm stopped. But when Pharaoh saw that the storm was stopped, he changed his mind. He said, no, you're not going to go. Well, then Moses and Aaron came to Pharaoh again. And they said, God has told us that you need to let us worship him. We need to go and worship him, because if you don't, tomorrow there's going to be a terrible plague. Locusts are going to come upon all the earth. Locusts, boys and girls, are a little bit like grasshoppers. Just that grasshoppers like to just hop by themselves, but not locusts. They go in great big huge bunches, and they have stronger wings. They're like, you're gonna have a plague of locusts, and everything that the hail missed, the locusts will eat. Anything that's left on the ground or in the trees, the locusts will eat. And then Moses and Aaron left the palace. And the servants of Moses said, how long are you going to allow this to happen? Don't you know? Why don't you let them go? Egypt is ruined. So Pharaoh said, call them back. So Moses and Aaron came to Pharaoh again. And Pharaoh said to them, who's all going? Who's all going? And Moses said, well, we're going to take our men and our women and the children, and we're going to take our flocks and our herds. Huh, said Pharaoh, the Lord better be with you. You may not go with all those things. Just the men may go. And he drove them out. Well, Moses stretched out his staff into heaven, and the Lord brought this huge west wind. This huge wind came, and let me see. Here's the Red Sea, and here's Egypt. Here's the Red Sea is over here. This is the Great Sea, and there's all this east wind all that day and all that night, and it brought huge clouds of locusts, and they fell on Egypt. They were in the palace. They were in the officials' houses. They were in the fields, and they all were together and they ate every single thing that was green in the whole land. And Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron and said, oh, please entreat the Lord. I will let you go. You can go. You can go too with all your people. You can go. And so when Moses left the city, Moses again spread his hands to God and asked. And the Lord sent a great big wind. And this wind came from the west. And it picked them up. And it picked up all those locusts. And it brought them and dumped them into the Red Sea. So they all drowned. But when Pharaoh realized that all the locusts were gone, he hardened his heart again. Well, this time, Moses and Aaron didn't warn Pharaoh. God said to him, stretch out your hands to heaven. And I'm going to put darkness on the land. And he made it. So Moses obeyed God, and God made it so dark in the land of Egypt. So dark, you couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. That's how dark it was. Nobody left their houses. It was so dark, but not in the land of Goshen. There was lots of light there. And Pharaoh called Moses and Aaron again, and he said, I've sinned. You can go. All your men, your women, your children, they can all go. Just leave your flocks and your herds behind. And Moses said, no. We have to take our flocks of sheep and our herds of cows. We have to take them all because we have to make a sacrifice to our God. And we don't know which animals he wants us to sacrifice. Not a hoof can stay behind. Pharaoh said, you better, I don't want to see you again. If I see you again, Moses, you're going to die. And Moses said, very well. You will not see my face again. And let's go quickly do our song once for the video too. First God sent plague number 1. The river Nile turned to blood, but Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no when the Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent plague number 2, jumping frogs all over you. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no when the Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent plague number 3, itching lice from head to knee. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no when the Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent plague number 4, nasty flies, need we say more? But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no when the Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent plague number 5, all the livestock up and died. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no when the Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent plague number 6, itching boils that make you sick. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no when the Lord said, let my people go. And number 7, you're going to pretend this is an animal, and these 2 fingers are going to be the lightning. Then God sent plague number 7, fire and hail came down from heaven. But Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no. The Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent Plague number 8, all the locusts ate and ate, but Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no. When the Lord said, let my people go. Then God sent plague number 9, total darkness all the time, but Pharaoh's heart was hard, and he said no. When the Lord said, let my people go. And tomorrow we do the 10th